Welcome to the Form Builder. Once you're in the Form Builder, let's click on Create New. You will land at this Form Builder that allows you to have a couple of different elements. If you want to customize every aspect of this form, you can, and I'm going to show you how. At the very top, you have the ability to edit the name of your form. Once you're happy with the edits, you can click on Save. On the far left-hand side, you have what's called the Add Form Element section. This is a pop-out which slides in and out of the left-hand side of your screen. From top to bottom, you have several different quick add elements, and you have what are called object fields. Underneath quick add, you're going to have the defaults of full name, first, last, date of birth, phone number, email, and additional elements. Scrolling down to the bottom, you also have what are called the object form elements that are going to automatically create a custom object inside of your account when added to the form builder. Let's add some text single line at this time. When I drag and drop this, I have the ability to choose where to place this particular element in line with my other elements. I will drop this just below my email. As you can see, it'll give me a single line and a couple of random numbers and letters. This is the identifier that you can use as a query key if you want to find it in your account. Of course, this may not be how you want it to be labeled, so let's go and change this. This may be where you want to put something like an animal name. In our case, we have the ability to align the label to the left side, to the center, to the right, or the form default. Below this, you have the ability to add a placeholder, which will fill in the blank in your form field. You can also add what's called a short label, which will be just below the form field. Below this is the query key that you can use as a URL parameter to populate this field if someone is being redirected or they're clicking on a link and you want to pre-fill some of these sections. Below this, you can edit the size using the field width. You can choose whether or not this is a required form element to be filled out. You can also do what's called hide this particular form element and choose a hidden value. Below this, you can do advanced settings such as adding a custom field name for referencing inside of your account and a unique key that will help you find each of these custom fields. Adding additional elements inside of your account will add them as custom objects to your account as well. That way, if you need to reference them inside of your contacts list, they will be present. You can also go and edit any one of the pre-selected elements inside your account by clicking the settings section, and it'll automatically pop up the general settings on the right-hand side. The same settings will be available. Each element is slightly different. If we drag and drop the ratings element, we can also choose a couple of rating settings such as icons, icon alignment, the count, and some other settings. You'll have to play around with each one of the elements. We're not going to be able to go through them all in this video, but you have some of the most important ones such as CAPTCHA, HTML, terms and conditions, the text, image, file upload, numbers and monetary, date picker, and a signature. Just note that in order to submit a form, one button will have to be pleasant. Clicking on the button element, we have the ability to select from some pre-designed themes, and if you're happy with the theme, then that's good. But if you'd like to do some more editing, then you have plenty of options. Here, we have a content editor that allows you to edit every aspect of the text. If you want to bold the text, you can. You can also add custom code blocks, inline code blocks, and additional editing code. You can choose to do underlines, background colors of each one of the fonts. You can choose font weight. You can enable an icon. You can also choose whether or not that icon is to the right or left. You can also choose the alignment of that button if it was smaller. I can choose the button background color and choose from my global custom colors, brand colors, or default. I can also choose a border, padding, and if I would like, a shadow. Those are some of the most important quick add form elements, but let's quickly go over the add object fields. Here, you can organize by each one of your custom object folders inside of your account. For example, if you have contact information that is important to gather, you can drag and drop something like your date of birth into the form. You can also add additional folders from your general information, and of course, if you've customized additional objects, they will populate here. Going back to the top, you also have the ability to open conditional logic. Let's quickly go over some of these options. Here, you can choose to redirect to a URL if certain conditions are met. For example, if we choose one of these fields, such as first name, and if the first name is equal to David, then we can choose to redirect them to a particular URL. You can also choose to have multiple variables that must be met, and once those conditionals or variables are met, you can have an and or and redirect them to a URL. Next, you can choose to display a custom message. If particular variables are met, then those conditions will then trigger one of the said actions to show a message on the screen. You can also disqualify a lead. This is great and very powerful for getting rid of things like spam or making sure that potential leads that you don't want to have to work with could be filtered out, particularly if they're not a fit. Next, you can choose to show and hide fields automatically. For example, if they fill out their first name, then you may want to hide one of the other fields. For example, if they fill out their first name, maybe you don't want them to fill out their date of birth. Once you're happy with all those conditionals, you can click on Save. You can have multiple conditionals inside of this section. Next, you have the ability to show notifications. Here, you can choose to turn on an email notification. You can choose the subject line of the email, choose who to email to. You can have multiple emails separated by commas. You can also choose a reply to email, a sender name, and choose to send a form submission as a PDF. There's also a autoresponder. This will send an automated email to the person who submits the form with a copy. You can also choose to send a PDF here. This is great if you need to confirm with the individual that they have received and you have received all of their information. You can also view this form in desktop or in mobile view. Okay, now let's hide this section on the right-hand side, and let's go to a couple of these buttons in the upper right-hand corner. First, you have the ability to preview, which will open up this form in a preview page. You can also click on what's called Integrate. When you integrate, you've got several available options. First is the embed code. It'll default as inline, and if you hover on each one of these sections, it'll give you an idea of how an inline works. You also have pop-ups, which is present on multiple different types of websites, and you can choose some variables down below this. We'll get to that in a second. You can click on a polite slide in, as well as a sticky sidebar. On the sticky sidebar, you can choose to allow, to minimize, or not. You can choose the side position, right or left. Below this, you can choose the trigger type. For example, if you want it to always show on the left or right-hand side, keep this engaged. But if you want it to show after a certain amount of time, or maybe a certain percentage of scroll, then you can fill in details here. For example, once a user has scrolled 10% of the way down the website, then this sticky sidebar form would show up. You could choose to activate on the second visit. You could also choose to deactivate after showing 5 times, or maybe even deactivate once the lead is collected. Most of these settings are also available for each one of these embed layout types, except for the pop-out and inline, which are not going to have the allow minimize or the positioning. Once you're happy with all of your settings, click on the copy embed code, and it'll say copy to clipboard. Now that this is copied to your clipboard, you can copy that embed code to any one of your website builders of choice. Wherever you need this form, it'll be there. You can also choose to share and email this form. Okay, below this we have a couple of options. Right now we've been in the editor. Next, we have settings. Underneath the settings sections, we have a couple of defaults. We can choose the onSubmit default to be a message, a redirect, or in the case of adding a payment form, you can do an order confirmation. If we want to redirect to a URL, then we can put the URL here. We can also choose to trigger a Facebook Pixel ID. A Facebook Pixel event can be edited here, and we can choose to do what's called a sticky contact. If we do a sticky contact, it will remember and try to autofill contact details if it's a return user. This may be useful for forms that get submitted on a regular basis by the same person multiple times. That way they don't have to fill out all the same information every single time they come back. You can also choose to create a conversation on submission, which will create a conversation thread whenever it is submitted, which may make it easier for you and your team to respond to people from the forms. You can choose to enable a time zone, which will try to capture the time zone of the submitter of this form. You can also choose to use GDPR compliant fonts. If we choose to do a message instead, then you can customize your message here with all of the available formatting inside of this custom editor. Below this, you can choose the message styling as well as the background colors, weight, corner radius, and some margins and padding. You also have the ability to click on submissions. You'll be able to see everyone that has submitted these forms, contact details, names, and email, and you can choose some of the columns and manage them here. Going back to our editor, we have what's called versions. If we click on versions, we can see past, edited, and saved version types. If we go and click on save, we may be able to see a new version inside the account. Now that version 2 is available, we may want to click on version 1 and click on restore version. This will then take all of the version 1 and make it the default current version, called version 3. That way, if you make any sort of edits and you want to go back, you can. You also have the ability to click on the undo section in the upper right hand corner. To the right, you have styles and options. Notice that you have two different pop-outs. You have a form element pop-out, and you can also click on styles and options. This is separate. This is where you can stylize your form. Styles is what you'll default into. You also have themes and advanced. If we were to put a theme onto our current form, we could find the one that we like and click on use theme. We can click on proceed, and then now the form is edited to the particular theme. We can choose to remove it if we would like. Going back to styles, we can choose whether or not we want to show an image. If we add an image, it'll show up at the top of the form. We can also choose whether or not there's columns, single, two, or single line. Depending on what type of forms and elements you have, some will look better than others. We can then choose our input style to be a line or a box. We can choose the width of the form. Just make sure to test it on all sorts of different devices before you deploy it. You can do our field spacing, label width, label alignment, and part padding and margins. Okay, with margins, we can choose to remove the auto, and as we drag and drop this is the top margin outside of the form. Inside of this is the padding from the inside of the top of the box to the first form element. Similar designs are on the right and left of the forms. We can get rid of some of our padding and then remove that if it looks bad. Below this, we can choose to show the labels, which are the labels for each one of the elements. We then have colors and background, which we can choose the background color from a bunch of different global custom colors, brand colors that may fit. Or if we would like to add additional colors, we can click on add, choose one of our sliders to find a color that we see fit, and click on save. As always, if we're not happy with the edits, then we can go back to the original. Here we can choose the primary color that is added to the account. And if that primary color is not adjusted, then you may not have any form elements that particularly touch the form. Then we may not have any elements that are edited by the primary color. You can then choose the input text color, which is the text such as dog whenever someone is filling out their form. You can also map primary colors to the button color. as you can see that change there. We also have the input background color, which is the input background of each one of the form elements, and input border, which is going to be the border outside of each one of these form elements. We can choose to add a background image if we would like. Switching over past themes, we can go to advanced. This will allow us to do some additional border width for each one of the individual forms. We can add corner radius if we had the box type instead of line type. We can do border colors, border styles, and shadows if we would like. Below this, we can do input fields, which are going to be when someone is filling out each one of these form elements, we can edit those details here. If we want to change some details of the label, such as the color of that text, we can change those colors here. Changing the font family of that label is as easy as choosing from a font family list. We can also choose a different font family for desktop and for mobile if we see an icon like this. Below this, we can choose and edit the short label where it says test. We also have the ability to edit the placeholder text, and maybe we'd want it to stand out just a little bit more. Below this, we also have the ability to add custom CSS. Once we are happy with all of our edits, we can click on save, and then we can integrate our form.